dates for special called work session for the CID expansion. I know some of you asked that we set a special meeting just for that. I plan on calling a special called work session in October on a weekday, probably at 7 or 7:30. Are there any dates in October that do not work?
Should have said
Well, we're gonna limit it to, we're not gonna do it on a Friday night, right?
Won't be a Friday unless it absolutely has to be.
And won't be,
Saturday.
It'll be a weekday, Monday through Thursday,
Okay,
probably at
Monday
7 or
through Thursday,
7:30.
okay.
How about the 24th? It's a Wednesday.
I can't do that. I can't do any of the Wednesdays for the next 5 weeks.
25th, Thursday.
There's a,
I'm wide open on that.
16th or the 23rd on Tuesday. They're both good for me.
It's my Bible study night. I like it. It's my only church night. It's Tuesday.
that's a book people usually go to church.
Catholics don't do church on Wednesday, they do it on Tuesday. It's okay, I can.
You sure about that?
I'm good at the 23rd or 25th.
I'm good on the 25th.
I'm good on 23rd and the 25th, 7 p.m.
Wait for this side of the table.
How about the 18th?
The 18th.
That's a
What day is the
Thursday.
18th?
Thursday.
I think I have something on the 18th.
Okay.
I'm good on.
I forgot my
I'm good on
calendar. I
23rd.
put this on the agenda and I forgot my calendar. You're good on what?
25th.
23rd?
Or 23rd, either one.
Dave, you're not good on the 25th?
Are you good on the 23rd?
Not possibly.
Possibly the 23rd or
I've got,
possibly
I've
the
got
25th?
a potential conflict on the 25th, but 23rd I'm fine.
Okay, 23rd.
23rd.
Okay. We will send out an announcement either the 23rd or 25th. Is your conflict, what time is your conflict?
9 o'clock,
At night?
I think so.
Jeez.
That's what I got. That's what I have to check.
It's not on my calendar.
That's my wife.
I understand your slowness to respond.
Would it be like 7 o'clock?
I'm thinking 7, but maybe if we could do it earlier on the 25th, then maybe that would work for you.
I think it's gonna take us 2 hours, or an hour to just, to go through all that. I think it's gonna take longer than that.
Put it on the 25th, if that's better for everybody.
All right,
25th.
Melissa will send out, I'll check the dates and then Melissa will send out an email.
Because we don't know about CID.
We need to check with them and everything else, so we'll send out an email and let everyone know.
Okay.
The dates for the sign tour, I know, got a little confused, and I'm not what I put on the agenda is not for the tour that we got the agenda for. So, just confused everybody even more. We got, the tour that Mr. Davis and Mr. Sanders set up was a tour for us to go to Lawrenceville and Norcross, and the CID, I think.
CID,
Gwinnett Village.
Lawrenceville, yeah, Gwinnett Village, yeah.
To look at the location signs and the welcome signs and all the signage that they had done in those areas. And I think we're still working on those dates, and I think that's something fabulous that we need to do. But in the meantime, we're also working on our sign ordinance, and there's some things here in the city that I would like to point out. I think it would be easier to point out than to try to explain as to what I think are issues with our sign ordinance. So since we're still working on the date for the big tour, I'd like to try to invite everyone to go on that mini tour, maybe 20 minutes of just the city of Snellville to point out some issues with the sign ordinance. So I'm thinking maybe a Friday afternoon for about 20 minutes,
You think we can do that in 20 minutes?
30 minutes,
Have to talk
an
about it.
hour.
Yeah, I'd say
I'd say an hour, maybe 2.
depending on what y'all want to see.
Depending on what some things are.
With the police escort, we probably could.
Yeah.
Which Friday?
I don't know, so that's what I was trying to get, does a Friday afternoon, if we schedule it around 3 o'clock, does that work for people? We'll get some dates out.
That seems to be fine.
Friday's the best day for me, so that's great.
Friday is open.
Friday what?
Good for me.
Depends on what Friday it is, I know.
Well, I'm okay next Friday, the 12th and the 26th. In fact, I thought the initial message that you sent out was calling for that tour, the big tour.
Big tour, we looked at the 26th, I haven't heard back from everybody yet.
I may be at a homecoming event on the 26th, but I don't know.
So the 26th is iffy,
For the big tour.
but the 12th and the 19th is.
I'm wide open on the 12th, except for the 10 o'clock, 10 to 11. I got a
I'm
meeting.
good on the 12th.
Okay. So I'll get with Mr. Davis and we'll also get that figured out to everybody if you wanna come. That will be a tour, so it won't actually be a meeting. There's an exception to the open meetings law for that, so, but if anybody wants to come along, we'll get a date together for that. Then that brings us to sign ordinance revisions. Mayor Pro Tem Litz.
Well, I brought this up because, we received some information from John. I know something's reviewed it, I reviewed it. And, I just think, I'm piggybacking on what Councilwoman Kraus brought up last week, our last meeting. I think this is an opportunity for us to sit down with the Board of Appeals and the Planning and Zoning staff and Planning and Zoning Board, and all of us sit down and hammer this thing out. One consideration I have is the term LED as a light source as opposed to a sign, a rolling sign. I think, you know, it's 2012, LED is lighting is the in thing right now, and I just think that there's a difference between having a sign lit with LED lights as opposed to having a sign that runs. You know, I went through Loganville last Friday night, my God. You know, you get dizzy going through there, and the banks and the carpet companies and all this stuff, you know, it's all rolling, and I understand we don't want that. But an LED used as a light source to light a sign is something completely different. And so I think we need to iron things like that out. And I talked with John, and John said he had reviewed an ordinance from somewhere else that had signs broken down.
Bunches of them.
Right. So I think he has some information to share with us. And
I did do a rough draft of what could be an electronic message. We're not talking about lighting sources. We're talking about an electronic message board.
as opposed
As
to
opposed to-
LEDs as the lighting source.
Yeah, an LED is how they're done.
LED is the light
That
source.
can be how they're done.
Right.
They are essentially,
Light emitting diodes.
they're light emitting diodes, and they come in various and sundry diameters. Okay. What you want to control, if we really get down to it, is size of message, frequency of message, light emitted. I don't know if y'all remember or not, but when they first put up the big electronic billboard on I-85 going south down near REI, okay, well, you'd have noticed it if you'd have hit it, because the thing would fry your eyeballs from 2 miles away at night. And it just, it's pow, okay. We can control that, and we can control it by having certain foot candles of energy available. We can say, for instance, there won't be scrolling signs. A sign will come in, it'll park, it'll be there for 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes, whatever we want to do. We can put them on a dark background with setting the colors that we will allow. There's a lot of things we can do for it.
I'm gonna cut you off for a minute and keep you on top, keep us on track. I think those are great things. What I envision the game plan to be, I think staff sent out the ordinance to the planning department and to the Board of Appeals. We've given it to the Shop on Scenic people. We asked the Commerce Club to look at it. I think when we go on this tour, we'll point some things out with staff. I think there's a lot of information, and hopefully staff can take some of these changes and make some suggestions, but then we're gonna have to have a special call work session just for the sign ordinance if we wanna invite those other groups to be there. But first we are trying to get, if we wait for everybody to bring the information to that special called work session, we'll never get through it. So I think we first preliminary need to get information to staff so they have some idea of what the different groups are looking at, and then call that work session.
And we had gotten y'all that draft, and it has some areas in it. I'd like to get your feedback on those areas.
And I don't know if this is something we're gonna get done in one work session. I think that, you know, this is an ongoing process, it could take 2 or 3. But I think it needs to get started. I think it gets started by having a meeting with the Board of Appeals, planning, yourself, any other groups in the city that feel need to be there. And then where are we, and then where do we want to go, and hash it out. I think there's probably a 2 or 3 meeting process.
It has gotten started by sending it, we just recently sent it to those groups, we're waiting for feedback, we're trying to schedule this for the city of Snellville and get feedback, and then once we've gotten input, and they have, I'm gonna ask that the staff then put something together, and we have that work session. We don't wanna have that work session before everyone's had an opportunity to look at it and digest it, otherwise we're starting from square one.
Yeah.
That's
And
one
when
approach.
people
My
have-
approach is you give a date, and they have to look at it by that date.
But we appreciate the input.
Yeah,
And if there's input from anybody else, please let us know.
Yeah.
This is one area of interest that's come up. Anything else helps us define the hot spots, if you will.
we can control we can control the electronic billboards, that's not an issue. We can control signage. What we need to know, the draft that I sent out to everyone essentially addresses those items that we get a lot of Board of Appeals cases on that we tend to pass. And if we're gonna pass them anyway, let's just short circuit and change the ordinance. But we need to get everybody agreeing on it, and that's why it's out there before you. I will email you all, literally just finished that draft, so I will put that out to you guys as another thing for you to take a look at. And if we can set a time frame.
And the Commerce Club, staff just put the ordinance on the front page of our website so that it was more accessible for everybody. We just asked Commerce Club last week to look at it, so give everybody a little bit of time to digest it, and then we'll
Well,
set.
but, and I appreciate what you're saying, Mayor, but here's where I and government split. You know, I have deadlines, you put deadlines up, people react to them, you wait for them to react to it. There's some people who are gonna come 3 months from now, I've not looked at it.
No, we're not
So
gonna do
can't
that,
we-
we're
let's set a
gonna, by the
meeting.
next work session, we'll set a meeting, but at this point in time, we're giving people at least 2 weeks to digest everything.
Okay,
We
that's
just
fine,
gave
at
Commerce
the next
Club-
work session, we will set a
Right,
date.
we just
Sure,
gave
sure.
Commerce Club the ordinance last Tuesday, so we're giving people some time, it's not an
That's
easy
fine.
document to read, so.
That's fine, next
Um,
week.
I think Shop on Scenic got it, what was that, Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Are you
And then
looking at
hopefully
liquid
we'll have
crystal
the
as well?
sun tour between now and then.
That's gonna come,
What was that?
liquid crystal.
How the stuff is done is irrelevant.
Okay.
How it looks is what we're worried about. You know, you've got, don't have any on one side, you've got the Las Vegas Strip on the other. There's a happy medium in there somewhere that you're searching for. I really don't care what the source of the light is, I just want to control it.
that has to come across in the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Okay,
Thank you.
question?
Community garden lease, I know we keep saying we're waiting. You know, plots are being put out, the community garden's moving forward, so it's my intent to put this on the next council agenda for a vote. We need to have something, some type of legal documentation in place that gives the use of that property.
Right now, I've talked with the community garden people, they're inclined to keep it understaffed. There's 2 things that they'd like changed in the lease. One was the fact that it could be used for more than just gardening. In other words, if you got classes there, if somebody, 5 years from now, when this thing is completely built, they could have a wedding reception or a meeting on the property. Want to make sure that's included without a problem. And the other thing is that, of course, there's some angst about the signature on that they would not be held. That, of course, it would be staff that would be leasing the property and not those people individually. They wouldn't be held individually responsible. So, just want relief from that. There would be staff that would be the actual leaseor.
I think it's that way. I think that the entity in the document has been staffed.
And I think they just want reassurance on that.
Nonprofit, right, not a person.
Economic development update.
Eric is not here, obviously, today, and he's put together a short report, and the key thing is the mock-up of the brochure attached, which is the toolbox. And I know he's been working with Tony on making sure that we have all our liability issues covered. And I think we're very close. Eric has asked for your comments by the end of this week, and we'll be able to implement all of Tony's suggestions and really mandates to make sure that we don't have a liability issue by putting this out. But I can tell you that the information and the document itself is very good compared to what I've seen in the past. Every community wants to put something like this together. Every community has not been successful in putting something like this together. In the Shop on Scenic, I had the opportunity to go to meet with a small group of people, the Shop on Scenic folks, but an interested group of people. And you know, they all spoke very positively about seeing something like this, and when they started, the benefit that something like this could be to them. So it's economic development is like putting a puzzle together. There are a lot of pieces to that puzzle. This is just one, but it is a step in the right direction, and done the right way, it can be very positive.
We're good. Yeah.
Two more things to talk about tonight. First of all, LCI update. We're getting close to letting it for bid. We've made progress on resolving some of the combination cases, and so.
Tony, you sent me something over the weekend that
You're gonna
lots
get on
24 and
that.
25, all is right with the world.
Okay.
We've got them, we have what they asked for. They have what they asked for, they just don't realize it yet.
Okay.
They need to talk engineer to engineer.
Yes.
So it's the one lasting reading.
And then the Summit Chase Dam, I don't know, there was a meeting Friday, and I spoke with Mr. Sanders, Mr. Powell, want to put this out there. There was a meeting Friday with the staff and with the Summit Chase Homeowners Association. I spoke with the Homeowners Association Friday night, but since then there has been an issue that has come up. I don't know how many of y'all have gone down Summit Chase Drive this weekend. Apparently there are rats now coming out of the lake. The 3 homeowners that have the caution tape up in their front yard also are animal owners, and apparently they feed their animals outside. And so with the rain, there have been rats coming out of the lake, and they have gone to the homes where the food is.
Oh, it's quarantine.
So the homeowners have now put signs in the front yard that say, City of Snellville,
The
please
rats
help
read
us,
them.
infested by rats.
Oh, I didn't know the rats could read the signs.
They are bright yellow signs down Summit Chase.
We have smart rats.
I think if you have a rat infestation, we need to quarantine that area and keep the citizens away from it.
I don't know. I don't know how bad, I don't know how many rats we're talking about. I don't know if they're I don't know, field mice. But it doesn't look good for the city or for the neighborhood, obviously, to have those signs down Summit Chase. I've asked staff what.
It's another opportunity.
I've asked staff, the HOA, what they've asked is that the city, they don't have the money to pay for the repairs up front. They've asked the city to possibly pay for them and then to do a special assessment against the people affected. And there's different areas of people affected because some people use the lakes as a detention pond, some people actually live in the lake, some people use it for irrigation. So I've asked staff to put together a report, first of all, how we would vote on something like this, because all but 2 of us in here would be affected by a special assessment. And second of all, what the different levels would be for people that use in some form or fashion use the lake, and ask that we put that on our next council agenda, a report from staff on that. But in the meantime, I don't know what we're gonna do about the rat issue.
We'll check that out tomorrow.
I have, if I may, I have already spoken to the homeowners association, and they went out and spoke to the people who were having the rat issue.
But the signs went up after they spoke to them.
Yeah, I know, they don't play well. The problem we got is the lake is a natural habitat for rats. And when the lake water went up with the 6-inch rainstorm we had last week, water comes up, rats move. Water goes down, rats go back to where they were. Feeding their pets on the back porch ain't helping things any. But
What
when
did
you
they do
live
when the
on-
lake was full?
Huh?
Where did the rats go when the lake was full?
I don't think there were any rats down there when the lake was full. They probably were around the edge. They've probably always been there,
Yeah.
but
Unless the rat news said, come on over here, or something.
it's entirely possible they had a restaurant ready to visit these people.
The rat is
I don't
or
know.
whatever.
But we've done everything we can do at this point.
But these are the same people that had to tape up early on in the disaster area and all that, when the same three homes, am I right?
Same group, the ones that don't belong to the homeowners association.
Can we charge them for having their pets not on a leash?
They're in the backyard. Well, the,
I
no,
don't
the
think
person
they
that had
take
the
the
pet.
If they feed them, they own them.
The one,
They might be pets.
the one home is a new owner that just moved in like a week ago because the previous home was a vicious dog and they had to move out and now they have a new homeowner in there. So they have just moved in the last week or two.
Actually, I think
Yeah, they're renters.
they're
yeah.
renters.
Well,
Where the dog and the rats come in.
the answer here is to find a solution to the problem with the dam.
Fill in the
And,
line.
you know, let's have a long-term solution, get back to a semblance of normalcy.
Anything else?
I'm real well on this topic. Is there a need for an exec session on this one based on the dollars and our involvement on
At this point in time, it doesn't fit into exec session. It may in the future, but at this point in time, we're not there yet.
I just think you have a hard time breaking out the assessment. You got lakefront, you have non-lakefront, you got, you know, the whole development on the other side that benefits, that's not part of the homeowners association. I mean, how do you, I don't envy you this. I mean, this is a puzzle.
Well, that was the first time I had a chance to meet with those folks the other day. And obviously, they have a sense of urgency. They have a real problem, a legitimate issue here. Everybody, there's a large group of people that uses that lake for stormwater purposes. They get a benefit from it because it is a holding pond, basically. And so even people who don't realize it have a stake in that facility and how it's operated and what it can and cannot do. There are different ways to go about approaching an assessment. And we need to put some options on the table. We need to make sure that conversation carries on with Ms. Port and her folks.
And one of the reasons we had put off the city refinance was because we were waiting to see what these figures were, to see if we could roll this into the city refinance. I think the figures the HOA's gotten, they did put the lake out, the repairs out for bid, and I think it's at about 85,000, 90,000.
85 to
85
90,000.
to 90. But that's for the small lake, and the large lake is coming up, and that's gonna be probably close to $1 million. And so do we go ahead and address that issue now? That's gonna be state mandated. And there's,
What is that? It's the first I'm hearing that.
Upper Lake,
Yeah.
it's a big dollar, it's the big dollar.
What's wrong? I mean, I've never heard their
It's
problem.
gotta qualify for safe dam, it's Georgia regulated, and they're trying to figure out, I think they're trying to assess.
State safe dams recategorize that dam as a category 1 dam. In other words, if the dam fails, there could be loss of life.
Damn.
State Dams is currently evaluating the dam. It's probably gonna take Safe Dams 1.5 to 3 years to get through it. Because I think there's like 2 engineers in charge of every dam in the state of Georgia. So when they get to it, they'll get to it. The problem is, when they get to it, they're gonna want it solved that night, once they finally come up with an answer. And the homeowners association out there hasn't got a chance. They've never, as most places do that are laid out with lakes on them, they've never put anything aside to maintain those lakes. Because lakes, unfortunately, unlike streets or sewers or other things, they don't break fast. They break slowly. And it looks fine because there's water in it, so everything must be all right.
Well, I mean, based on that, you're talking 1.5 to 3 years, that really doesn't affect whether or not we refinance our debt on this place, does it?
if it's something where the city's gonna front the money and then do a special assessment, then we have to think of where we're gonna get that money to front.
Well, we're talking $85,000, $90,000.
That's
No,
for step one.
For step
That's
one,
for the
step
lower
two, we
dam.
got $1 million.
Right,
If
but
we
you
were-
said, but what I just heard, correct me if I'm wrong, you said it's 1.5 to 3 years before the upper lake is even assessed?
It's gonna be somewhere in that time frame before they finish their work.
Well, I
Now,
think the people in that subdivision need to be put on notice that that's coming
Well-
too, and they
Well, I
need to
guess
start
they-
saving their
they're,
pennies.
they're on notice. The homeowners association is well aware of this, and they have been taking steps, and they've done some stuff as they've gone along. But that lake is going to need a lot of attention. It's well beyond anything they're set up.
I understand that, but how do you explain to the people that on the North Church that they're subsidizing that? I have a problem with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just don't see how that affects whether or not we can effectively do something today to save taxpayers money, by refinancing our current debt at a lower rate.
One of the reasons that, one of the pieces of information came out of that meeting, and I don't know if you got the deed search documentation or not, but that needs to be reviewed. I mean, we told them we were weeks away, or we were a lot of study away from really doing anything. But we do have a roadway over that dam. It makes it a little different situation for, than, in my mind, than the upper dam, but I haven't looked at that.
Well, and again, $85,000, finding something for $85,000 is a lot different to me than $1 million. And the upper dam, we don't have any roads going across.
And in dealing with folks like this in the past, John's exactly right. There's not homeowners associations, everything's fine. You know, you spend it on, you know, canoes and
Pig roast.
you know, a lot of different stuff. But then when things go wrong, you gotta plan for it. And our cost of money is a lot less than their cost of money. And if you lock that, you know, if you guarantee that debt service through assessments, bondholders are glad to buy the bonds, but you gotta make sure that that's tied in there. So there are options there, and as the mayor asked, we'll present
Well,
those.
based on $95,000 and 185 people participate in the HOA, it's about $513 a household for an address. Just food for thought.
They can't, they're like, well, we can talk about it some other time.
One last question, John, does the state have any contingency funding in support of these?
No,
of course not.
I can answer that.
That's a no-brainer.
I don't know, but maybe the FAA does.
Why are you bringing the FAA in the picture?
We may have a landing strip there.
Why are you bringing the Federal Aviation Agency in the work session that city has? I'd like to have an answer. Why do you bring the FAA into this, Molly?
It just happened.
Okay, well, then we have to find out why this happens, because the FAA has nothing to do with this. For the record, the Federal Aviation Administration has nothing to do with the city of Snellville's work session. So from now on, I'll appreciate you keep the FAA comments to yourself.
I think you brought those up talking about Wi-Fi the other night, Mark.
I didn't bring it up with the FAA.
I'm not thinking you did.
Maybe get with Mayor's, let's lose his last name. Slater. Over at Berkeley Lake, they just received some federal funding on their dam, I don't know, like
The city land?
I
think it's
city
FEMA
of-
money.
is it FEMA? Okay.
It's FEMA money from the storm damage that occurred 5 years ago.
Two brochures.
Took them 5 years.
Oh, I got one.
Get it.
No, there's one.
All right, we will reconvene at 7:30. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the GWMA meeting, if any of you are RSVP'd at Hilton Hotel in North Carolina.
One's economic development and one is just city information.
Hi.